Thank you all for joining me on today's episode. And before we begin with our interview with Doc Kane today, I wanted to take a few moments and just share some things about the show. If you're new to the show, you're coming in at a wonderful time, as I really feel a little more than a year into it now that our show is really becoming just a great resource to anyone interested in Japan and the community that we are building through interviews and just my interactions with you mean the world. For those of you that have been returning again and again, I truly want to thank you, and it means the world to me as I see, although it's not the reason I do the show, it is nice to see that our downloads are just increasing so much. When I look at a year ago when I was recording, I think I had my friends and family and a few other people that may have stumbled across the show. But from January on, it has really taken on its own, purpose and its own energy. And even within the 2.5 months prior, we had the number of downloads we had from January to March that were then to May, all of that time that's there. And then just in the short time from May till the end of June, had the same number of downloads just appear again and again and again in just an ever decreasing amount of time. And I just want to take the time to say thank you. We are going to be doing a year episode that's also going to be an interview with a friend of mine that lives in Vancouver. And while borders remain not completely open, as I would love it to be for tourists to visit Japan and just kind of do what we'd like to do, as I have done in the past. If you live in Canada, he's going to give some great information to you to experience Japan, a lot closer to home. And I look forward to sharing that. We have an interview coming forth with an artist from Tokyo who is kind enough to join the show. And we are also going to be interviewing an author that lives in Tokyo, and what she has done is just magnificent, and kind of share one book in general that caught my attention, and then a few others that she has written, along with some new projects. And I'm probably going to have that interview be sometime in October, which means it could have a release in November. I have an episode coming that is on Gifu City, and I could not be more excited to share that with you as well. All in all, we have our day trips, we have our interviews, and we just will be offering so much more to you. And I look forward to just trying to make the show even better. Feel free to always reach out to the show at Lost Without Japan at our Instagram, or lostwithoutjapan@gmail.com. Always enjoy the communications that I have and the friends that I'm building through that. For today's episode, I just wanted to point out that much like my interview with Jeff, that this does have an explicit tag on it. It is not something that I'm looking to have be a common theme for the show, but it really fit with what I was doing with Doc. Doc sleeps less than I do, and I didn't think there were many people that did this. In fact, I kind of question if he sleeps at all. He has a translation business. He has a business where he's looking to help teach Japanese to, kind of like your intermediate to advanced learners in a very unique and exciting way. And he's going to have his hand in making a movie in Japan. Truly a wonderful person to talk to, and so excited to share my interview with Doc with you today. And now let's get on to starting our show in that normal way. Thank you.
Welcome to Lost Without Japan, a travel podcast about the life-changing experiences of exploring Japan and those moments we would be lost without. For your listening pleasure, allow me to introduce your very own Kanko Gaido, Michael.
Welcome to a special Lost Without Moments bonus interview episode of the Lost Without Japan podcast. Our bi-weekly podcast is focused on getting you to Japan for your first visit or to make your next adventure to Japan an even better one than your last. Today's special interview episode is with the author, translator, and co-founder of Maplopo and Paul McCartney fan Doc Kane. During today's interview, we'll be covering an amazing language learning service, learn about how he escaped Chicago, Illinois, and made his way to Japan, leaving behind his career to live and start a new one, and start businesses and movie adventures as well, all in Japan. This is your Kanko Gaido for TKIC Studio Productions, coming to you with hopes and dreams of return to travel for others in 2022 and for his son and himself in summer 2023. I'd like to thank you all for giving me a bit of your time today, and I truly hope this podcast finds you in a good place or on the path to a better one, no matter how it may seem at this moment. My belief is we could all use a beacon like this one in our lives to help guide us during these times, and my hope is that Japan, along with this show, will become that for you. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning Lost Without listener, thank you again for your time and returning once again. For today's show, let me introduce Doc Kane, a special guest from Kobe, Japan, and the co-founder of Maplopo and founder of Marianne Productions. I must say, I'm truly thankful for you setting time aside to join me today for this interview, Doc.
Hey, Michael, no sweat. My absolute pleasure to be here and to connect with someone in Chicago again, since that's my kind of second hometown.
Well, Doc, I have some hard-hitting Chicago questions later, so just, be prepared. I've added some things, after you looked at it, so,
yes.
Might as well.
Okay.
Might as well.
All about hot dogs and other good greasy food, probably pizza.
You better believe it, Doc. You better believe it. So,
okay, sweet.
Doc, I don't want to spoil our interview at the start today, but I must say you're making my plan of moving to Japan later in my life seem all that more doable. Like I do feel your story can be an inspiration to others regardless of your age. It's easy to let life seem like you're on a set path, carved into stone. And, even if it takes Paul McCartney to help you realize that change is indeed very much possible, it really is something that after kind of like hearing some other interviews and things that you were on, I loved it. I loved it, Doc.
Thanks, man.
And I truly feel fortunate that you have a good taste in music, number one.
Yes.
But also, Doc, just joining us here today and to share, about you, your wife, and, what you all have to offer listeners of Lost Without Japan. So truly, welcome, Doc. Starting off here, I'd like to say that this section right here is really just like whatever you'd like to share with listeners.
Sure.
And before we get going with that, though, I always, Doc, hate when it's like the end of an interview and you're kind of just beginning to share like social or websites and things like that.
Oh yeah.
I like to get it out of the way now. And once again, at that time, could you go ahead and share where listeners have Lost Without Japan? I mean, Doc, I this is funny, but, I thought myself as a full-time teacher, a part-time worker at night, a dad, a podcaster, was busy. And then, I hear more about your life and realize, I have more room in my day.
Yeah, surprisingly, we all do. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like, where could listeners look out to, reach out and talk to you about either be it these language, things that you have to offer, the movie, life in general, what would be a good way to get about getting a hold of you?
Sure. Yeah, probably. Probably the simplest way to get a hold of me is to hunt me down on LinkedIn. And so my name is Doc, like the doctor, and Kane, like citizen. So if you're looking for me anywhere online, I'll come up pretty easily. Ironically, there's another film guy who's been in the film world forever, and he's who I call the famous Doc Kane. If you type my name in, he might come up too. He works for Disney, and often people will email me every few years. Hey, I just saw this Disney movie and I saw your name at the end of the credits. Did you work on that movie? I'm like, oh, no, that's the famous Doc Kane. But I'd love to meet the guy someday. It would be super cool. But if you type my name into Google and maybe with LinkedIn, or just go directly to LinkedIn, you'll find me. I'm very easy to find and connect with me there and reach out. Additionally, you can find this effort that my wife and I run here in Japan, which is called Maplopo. It's Maplopo.com. And we do translation. So we translate Japanese literature into English. And this year we started a Japanese learning program using stories. So using the stories that we translate, we teach intermediate to advanced learners of Japanese, using those books or short stories as our kind of main tool. And that's, you can find it there on maplopo.com, or you can type in Maplopo Schoolhouse and it will redirect to the correct page for that as well. Those are probably the best places to find me and chat me up if somebody wanted to say hello at this point in time.
Sounds good, Doc. And I promise I'm going to get the Maplopo, correct for the rest of the interview.
Yeah, we actually just changed the logo because we realized that that's an issue. So normally people aren't talking about our company name first. We will tell people if we're in conversation, the name of our company is Maplopo, and so they hear it and repeat it back to us. But lately, we've had a few people bring it up first, as you did just a few moments ago. And we started to hear like, oh, hell, people are saying Maplopo. That's not good. So we changed the logo and put like this little maple leaf as a macaron almost above the A. So hopefully people kind of get the idea. It doesn't matter, really. But as long as they know how to type it into Google, we're okay. Don't sweat it.
That's at the end of the day. I like it. And I like to start my interviews off, Doc, with just letting you have a chance to kind of share about yourself.
Yeah.
And really, my friend, I know that you said anything and everything is good, but just a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, your family.
Sure.
And we'll kind of head on from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Jersey in America, kind of a semi-rural area of New Jersey called Phillipsburg. And I lived there until I went to college. I went to college in Illinois at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And I took forever to finish. And when I finished, I moved up to Minnesota for a while and then over to Chicago. And I pretty much hung out in the Midwest ever since leaving New Jersey. So that's why I don't have this kind of Jersey accent that the rest of my family has. I love the Midwest. I really love Chicago. I had a buddy who was a Chamber of Commerce president in Lincoln Square and convinced me to move there from Minnesota. And I was so happy that I did. And I stayed in Chicago for years. And I went back to New Jersey for a little while during the recession of whatever the hell that was, 2008, 2010, when things kind of went all upside down. And I lived at home for a while as a 40-year-old, which totally sucked. I worked for Amazon and killed myself on night shift. And it was a good readjustment period for me in a way. And then we can talk about Amazon later or whatever, but I worked my way up I was just a muckety-muck in the warehouse at Amazon. Like a lot of other people, I met a guy there who was a Wall Street broker or something like that. He was making $250,000 a year, and then he was making $11, $12 an hour like I was as a warehouse guy. It was just a horrible time, but eventually I made my way up and became a manager. But then the way Amazon works is they have these peak seasons and they basically let everybody go. So I worked there for maybe a year and a half, I think, altogether, from warehouse person to manager, and then was let go. And then just coincidentally, I was like posting about beer and shit like that, and on Facebook, and an old buddy of mine who had founded a company in Chicago said, "Hey, are you doing anything these days other than drinking beer and writing about it on Facebook? And we kind of need a writer." So I started working for him, and I worked for a few months remotely, and then he said, "We'd really rather have you out here." And then another former boss of mine called me like the same week and said, "Hey, we want you to come out here as well and handle some marketing for us." So it was really bizarre. I mean, like within this literally span of a week, I had these two people offering me consulting positions to come back to Chicago. And that's what I did. So I had to go lease a car and all this other crap. And then my life just, boom, whisked me away to Chicago. And I spent another 5 years in Chicago before then transitioning here to Japan. And this fateful Paul McCartney concert that you mentioned earlier. That's my life.
An important
3 minutes.
No, I like that. It was a good version, of things, Doc. And one important thing before we get, too far moved on is, do you have a preference between Lou Malnati's or Rosati's when it comes to the deep dish pizza for Chicago?
That's so funny. So I really love Lou Malnati's. It's too damn expensive. But Rosati's, so it's been a few years since I've been in Chicago, but I'm pretty sure like Rosati's they have a cup. Did you read about me mentioning Rosati's somewhere?
No, actually, I just was like, I have another person, even though I know it was Jersey, Chicago, and kind of the Midwest and things, but I'm like, how can I interview someone from Chicago and not ask about deep dish pizza? I mean, I'd be kicked out. I'd be kicked out of the whole podcasting world if I didn't do that.
Yeah, no kidding, right? My first introduction to Chicago pizza was in college. A buddy of mine who lived in Naperville took me to Gino's East, which was fantastic. Gino's East is kind of more yeasty. I like it. But Rosati's, I think, is not necessarily very deep dish, right? Or is it?
Right.
Okay.
It's not. It's not as much, yes.
So I think if Rosati's is this place that also has a location somewhere up around Bannockburn, which is where my company was that I worked for, called Revenue Well, which is awesome, by the way. If you want to work for a great company, Chicago people, try and hunt down the people at Revenue Well. They're fantastic, and you will love working there. But anyway, if Rosati's is out there, my memory fades me. I ordered from them all the time, and they used to have these deals where you could get like a second pizza for like half price or whatever. And so I would live on pizza for literally like a week or so, and chicken wings, I think. And I got pretty fat. It was fun.
Doc, it's a good thing you moved to Japan, just for quality of life things right here. As if you'd stayed in the Midwest,
dude,
who knows?
Yeah, you ain't no kidding. That's for sure. I lost a lot of weight here just walking around. Where I live on a mountain. So I literally am a 15-minute walk up and down from the train station. I lost a lot of weight. People are like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm just walking everywhere. And it's no pizza, really. That's great here, so I avoid it.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I miss the most. Like, I love visiting Japan, and I like, it's having been so long. 2019 was my last trip.
Oh.
And I can't wait for it to be back open. I would have been back in 2020, 2021.
No kidding.
Would be back every summer if I could.
Wow.
And I have friends that I've made in Osaka. Have friends that I've made in Hiroshima, and it's like they're looking forward to meeting my son. And he was going to be coming as a 19-year-old, and man, he's turning 21 soon, Doc. So I'm hoping next summer is finally where they're going to open things up for Japan completely, so that we can get there. Share a beer or something.
There you go. Yeah, Kobe is very close to Osaka, so go for it. Bring your son. He's old enough to drink here in both countries, so no problem.
I look forward. And Doc, when I was looking at different things, I I saw that you have traveled to more than just Japan. For where
Yeah.
else can you tell us as far as other countries and things that you've visited?
Sure. So, like most Americans who've traveled a bit, I've been to Canada and Mexico. But some of the more adventurous paths I've taken have been to Ireland. Just out of college, I spent 2 months in Ireland, and I worked there in a McDonald's. Actually, that was a super wonderful experience. I've been to China. I spent 3 weeks in China and 3 weeks in Hungary. Um, I spent 3 weeks in Seoul, South Korea in 2017 when I had to exit Japan for a little while. So when you first come to Japan as a tourist, you're allowed to spend, I think, 3 or 4 months here, but then you have to leave. You can't just you can't hang out forever as an American citizen. So you have to disappear. And what a lot of people do is they will leave for a weekend or something like that. But the Japanese customs folks, immigration folks, whatever they call themselves, don't really appreciate that so much. They think you're just screwing with the system. So I did the right thing, and I went away for 3 weeks, and it was great. South Korea is cold as hell in December when I was there, but I stayed in the hostel, and it cost me, I think, 15 US bucks a night. It was so cheap, and I was right in the middle of this cool college town. It's fantastic. I think those are most of the places I've been to. I'd love to get to Vietnam. I've been wanting to go there forever, and I teach during the school year here at a senmongakko, which is basically a vocational school, and it's a hotel program. And I have met many students from Vietnam, so I have open invitations to go to Vietnam. I've written a decent portion of a screenplay about a story that takes place in Hue during the Vietnam War, and it's one of the main places I want to go when I go there. My uncle was in the war and didn't come back home, so I've been fascinated with Vietnam and Asia probably since I was a boy, largely because of that reason, I would imagine. But yeah, that's some of my travel escapades.
It is. It's good to see, that travel bug is more, than just Japan or getting you there. And it's nice to have that. I mean, I feel like we could talk about the McDonald's experience too for another hour, just alone what that was like. But
you work there too.
It's my sister did. I had, if you remember from when you're out here, Best Buy was my retail experience into things, along with the daycare work and stuff like that. But my sister went through like the Olympics with McDonald's and was able to actually go to Salt Lake City.
Oh, wow.
And serve, Olympians. I mean, so just the coolest thing. She loved her time there.
I'm sure.
Very much so. But, I was also like one of the places that I've not gone to yet, Doc, because every time I've gone back, I seem to bring people back with me. And you go to Japan, and if you're going to show someone Japan, you're going to end up in Tokyo. Yeah. You're going to end up in Kyoto. You're going to end up in Osaka. And like I said, I have friends that are in Hiroshima. But Kobe is like on my top of list of things that I need to do when I get there again. And would you mind just sharing we can go into this more later, just some of the things that you love about being in Kobe.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing about Kobe for me is how beautiful it is. So Kobe is nestled between the mountains and the sea. We have what's known as an inland sea here in Kobe. It's called the Seto Island Sea, and it's just so beautiful. This area reminds me of a mix between Seattle and Chicago. Because of the lake, it has this just wonderful calmness to it. And this region of Japan, this Kansai region, that's Osaka and Kobe and a bunch of other surrounding areas, is kind of known for people who are chill, right? So it feels very, very homey, and that's my favorite aspect of being here. It's immediately recognizable, even if you spend a couple days in Tokyo and then you come down here, you'll feel it in the grocery store, how people are different. So that's really great. Like any city in Japan, places to eat are numerous, and we love going out to izakaya here. My wife's brother actually owns an izakaya in Kyoto, and so food is kind of a big thing for Japanese people. Food and drinking are very, very good companions, and we're happy to indulge in both. I think this is one of the things, like I mentioned, losing weight and walking here. I think if Japanese people or people who live in Japan did not have to move so much, we would have similar weight problems that other people do too. It's just that we're walking everywhere. We're certainly not cutting back on drinking and eating, although the food that we eat is less calorie dense, perhaps, unless you're living on ramen, and less sugar and junk like that. But yeah, those things, I think food, culture. Kobe is really big with fashion. I've always been a big fashion person. And despite the fact that I don't really dress up myself, you see me in black t-shirt and jeans more than anything. As a matter of fact, I own no different colored t-shirts unless they were given to me as a gift or I was forced to buy it for some reason. And you'll see me often wearing this like flannel shirt all winter long. It's like nice Woolrich. You should get money from Woolrich for this announcement. Nice Woolrich shirt that I probably spend a $1.20 for, meaning $120. And the damn thing has lasted me so long. The elbows have finally started to wear through, and I'm going to have my mother-in-law put some beautiful patches on there for me. But man, that thing is wonderful. It keeps me warm, and because it's wool, it's like I don't have to wash it that often. I don't know if you've experienced with like what you have, right? Yeah, it's
yes,
incredible.
Yes.
Before I started to really focus on transitioning away from Chicago and living abroad, I started reading about like how can I pack light, and I had already kind of transitioned my life in a sense to I got rid of my car, my apartment. I was living in Airbnbs and hotels in Chicago for a year, and I was like really researching and geeking out on merino wool and like discovering like wow, this stuff is I can wear the same shirt for a week and socks even. And I would read about like athletes who would be climbing mountains and like, I can't believe I can climb this mountain with this merino gear and doesn't smell at all. And it is true. So if you want to buy, Woolrich or Columbia or any of this sort of gear, again, hit these people up for placement ads. You will not be disappointed. And that stuff is what made me survive and transition away from Chicago, actually, surprisingly. Lightening up everything that I had was largely a part or driven by focus and having the right things in my life and getting rid of everything else that I didn't need. That's the only way I was able to transition at the age of however old I was, 47, I think, and come to Japan.
Well, Doc, you did it right, and I've already begun to place it out with my kids. My son's already called dibs on my record player and amp and Bose speaker and things like that. So I'll be good. I'll be good when I get to that time, I think too. It's amazing once you start kind of planning things out to where I'm kind of the same way, where I've just started getting rid of things already. And like I told you, I'm still a ways away from getting there. But if I can have less to begin with, just makes that next step, even better when it finally is able to happen.
Yeah.
And
it provides Michael, it provides you with this opportunity to be totally free in your decision making because you literally don't have anything else to keep you behind, right? And so you realize, like, when we think about wanting to live abroad or work abroad or do anything that's like so much of a leap in a way, there's always something that will pull us back. Well, but I have a car payment, or well, but I have kids is a real issue that I had the luxury of not being married at the time and not having kids. That's a true obstacle, right? But all these other things I think are kind of surface level obstacles that we can actually reduce and minimize so that when we have an opportunity, we can leap. And that's what enabled it to be real for me. I just slowly cut away things, and it became so easy. The only voices that were holding me back from, and not even holding me back, but the only voices I heard that were suggesting that I not take the leap were in my own family. And that sort of idea is legend, right? Parents will always,
Yes.
what the hell are you thinking? You're old. What are you going to go to? Why you don't speak the language? What are you, crazy? There's no good pizza there.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Like, what about the Mexican food? What about the Mexican food? That's going to be...
Yeah, I wrote that in my thing, right? About Chicago and great Mexican. There's no Mexican food here in Japan that I've experienced. That's so weird, actually. There are things that you just can't get here. Like just getting a good sandwich you got to learn how to make your own bread. I make my own deep dish pizza here in Japan on the stovetop because I don't have an oven.
See,
all I have, and all most people have, is a fish grill. So you can't make it. You can't buy it. So shit, make it.
That's 100%. It's crazy. Like all those different things you can do, and I'm fortunate in the standpoint that my parents, me being the single dad that I am, are all like, "Hey, you should go out sooner," and I'm like, "I would love to, but that retirement." You're, when you're penalized 6% of your retirement a year when you leave early, that does, cut down things a bit. But I have both of their blessings on that, and my kids too. My son and my daughter both know that that's where I'm going, and who knows, I might have some, one of them or whatever that follow along or know that. If nothing else, my dad and mom, Doc, are in Arizona. And every summer they come back basically for June and July or July and August. And if I'm working over there, I just look to do the same thing. And, if I keep my place in for me, for like the Chicagoland, 1 second here, Doc, I want to make sure that I don't include that here. Just 1 second. Sure. Okay, so if I keep my place in Chicago, as I could possibly do, as my dad brought up as just a possibility, I'd have a place to come back to visit them and see the area, see my friends and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, it'd be great. I could do the same thing that they do, see Sam, see Addison, have those couple of times, together, and then have a different time of the year where they come out and visit myself. So yeah. I love it. Absolutely do. And I can't wait because Addison, I'm going to bring to Japan as well, just like I'm looking to do with Sam. And if I was going to share anything that meant the most to me, it's going to be this country. And I could tell you about, what first kind of attracted me to Japan, Doc, but it's not my interview.
I'd love to hear that.
What was it like what was for you that kind of first brought Japan to your attention?
I think if we're talking about like first time, it's Shogun, the TV series, and
yes.
So people my age would remember it. And how old are you, by the way? I see you nodding your head.
I'm 44, Doc.
Don't
44.
Don't wait too fucking long to come here, man.
No, Doc, I could not, feel you more from that point. I'm probably way before I'm able to move. I'm gonna get myself in a situation where it's just my summers are going to be spent there. So at least I can have 2 months. 2 months out of the year where I can continue to connect with my friends and, other people that I'm meeting through this show. But man, if I could, I'd load all three of us up and be off in your direction before I could think about it. So,
before we're done here, I want to if you have the time and it's worth chatting about, I'll ask you about this whole 6% thing, and I may drop an idea in your head. So let's remember to come back to that before we leave.
Sounds good.
It might be useful to know for you. So, what the hell were you asking me? Oh, Japan. So, so Shogun probably was the first, without a doubt, was the first experience for me. And then, as I think Japan is just kind of a latent memory for me. But then, newsworthy items start to bring it to attention, right? Like, so the Hanshin earthquake in 1995, I remember very, very vividly. Working, I had a part-time job, and I was working, and I remember seeing scenes of the road being tipped over, the elevated highway rather being tipped over on this huge screen television, and tsunami and things like that. And that, ironically, that Hanshin earthquake is where, when I came to Japan, I first came to Tokyo and then took the Shinkansen down, down to Kobe and Osaka, and I stayed here for a language learning course, a Cambridge University course, and stayed here for a month. And I had always planned on going back to Tokyo. But when I stayed here, I lived in this little town here called Shinagata, and I totally fell in love with the area and the people who befriended me. And I was so indebted to them for taking care of me, and love this little town. It's very close to where I live now. But Shinagata was basically the hardest hit area by the earthquake. And so I had no idea when I came here, but that whole highway that was tipped over was right around that area. And the people that I became friends with were children when it happened. And, they told me stories of like walking out in the middle of the night, because the earthquake occurred at, I think, 5:45 in the morning or something like that. And walking out and just seeing fire everywhere, So it was weird that I was transported to this place that I remembered so well. And I was literally in the area where it was very, very, very bad. And I didn't even know it. It was an interesting experience. When I really started to think about coming to Japan, though, it was probably in 2005 or so. I had a long vacation, and I traveled here and spent, I think, 2 weeks in Japan, and totally fell in love with it. It was just so beautiful and gorgeous. And I was like, this place is amazing, and I want to come back. And I did get a chance to come back in 2017, which you alluded to at the top of the podcast, to see Paul McCartney. So one night I was, so at the time in Chicago, I had already gotten rid of my apartment in Evanston and my car, and I was living in the extended stay Hilton in Bannockburn, which is right down the street from where I worked at Revenue Well. And I was just screwing around one night and probably listening to music on my computer and Spotify and listening to Paul McCartney. And I thought, what? Paul McCartney, I wonder if he's on tour anywhere right now. And sure as shit, he was going to be in Tokyo. And I was like, maybe I should see Paul McCartney in Tokyo. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't it? Because the idea, so I'm a music guy. I went to school for music. I worked in the music industry for a long time, and music moves me like nothing else. I mean, movies move me tremendously, but I can't exist in a world without music. And I'm a baby with a good song, and I've been known to cry way more times than I would like to admit as a person to a good song. So music moves me, and I'd always dreamed of seeing, or I'd always rather seen these films of the Beatles playing in Japan, and thought like how incredible it was to connect with a population of people that really don't know what you're saying, and strictly emotional response to music. How much more powerful could that be? And so seeing this this tour date that he was going to be in Tokyo, and having this large bank of airline miles that I had accumulated because I got rid of my apartment and was staying in hotels and racking up points like crazy, and airline trips that I had taken back and forth to New Jersey over the years and things like that. I said, what the hell? Let's use these miles. They're just sitting there, and go and see Paul McCartney. And so that's what I did. And I kind of snuck my way away from the office. I padded a bunch of permissible remote working days, and I padded them with a little vacation. And I was basically away for 2 weeks in Tokyo, again, living in a hostel. And it was so wonderful. And I had this experience on the train where I got up. I've mentioned this story before. You've probably heard it if you heard my interview. Yeah.
Yes.
I had this experience on the train where I yielded my seat to an older couple, as a good Catholic schoolboy in me has been taught to do by my parents and nuns.
Yep.
I do it without thinking, and a lot of people still do that here, obviously. Although phones seem to distract a number of the youth here from seeing older people get on the train sometimes. But I got up, and they were very appreciative of it. And um, I was on the train for another few stops, and then it was my turn to get off. And then both of them intentionally caught my gaze to thank me again. And I just thought, wow, I was so moved again by this experience, and thought, I want to be in a place where that sort of a gesture is a common gesture. And it is absolutely a common gesture. People do that. They look for you to leave and they thank you again. It's wonderful. And I said, I want to be here. And I messaged my mom sometime shortly after that. I think I was still in Japan when I sent her the message. And I said something like, what would you think if I said I wanted to move to Japan? And she said, I had a feeling you were going to send me a message like this,
Moms know you.
They do know us, yeah. So I think I gave notice shortly after that, and I can't remember now if I was here a month or 2 months after that. I think a month and a half after that, I was here, and that was it. I resigned my job. My boss was happy for me, but quite disappointed, and we still have I was literally just emailing them this week about this movie stuff, but it was the right time to make the move. And because I had done everything that I said before, I literally was carrying around my life in a bag, and it was possible. I was able to think, hey, is this a choice that I want to make? Yes, it is. Let's do it. And I just did it. And I'm glad I did.
I like it, Doc. I like what you're saying with that, as far as leaving it. And I got to tell you, we have had similar experiences when it comes to that. And
Cool.
Japan is a country that makes you fall in love with it again and again,
Yes.
On every visit. And one of the things that stands out to me, I was having a conversation today, was that in Japan, if you tell someone that you're in education or that you're a teacher.
Uh-huh.
That comes with a high, amount of respect. And when someone says man, that's amazing, I love that, it's not just lip service. It's truly, a heartfelt statement. And the friends that I have made in Japan are those that share it in that, and just really. Those relationships are the ones that mean the most to me, on top of my friends that I hold closest. And
Cool.
I could not agree more. I mean, I really do. It's just those little things seem to happen, more than they don't.
They do. Yeah, people are, people are people, right? And so
Yeah.
there are not nice people here in Japan, and there are nice people in Japan. But I think by and large, we're dealing with a community of people that are respectful, and it's not some bullshit fakeness. I remember some people can say, "Oh well, Japanese people are just being polite; they're not really nice." That's false. That's not true at all.
Yes.
And it is a wonderful thing. And you're going to encounter people who aren't friendly. Oddball people are everywhere as well. But it's a cool place to be. You're right about being an educator here. It is respected, particularly when you introduce yourself as such with someone closer in age to you or older. I can say that not every younger person cares. I have plenty of students who would prefer to sleep in class, or talk to their friends, or do their hair.
Yes.
So the respect is not often granted while you're teaching. However, the title is honored to a degree. Yes. So you mentioned this a couple times, people that you've met who who live here, I guess, and who are teachers. These are people you have met in your travels or through the podcast, or how do you come to meet these people?
So a couple of them are from another podcast. There's a podcast called Japan 2.0, and they are both involved with education as well, and they're part of international schools.
Yeah.
And they have, talked to me kind of same thing, Doc, of like, hey, when you're ready to come over, let me know,
Cool.
But they have a bunch of places in Osaka to show me. I had a wonderful experience in Hiroshima. I went to Japan. My first time was in 2004, and I went with the Japan Fulbright Memorial Fund, and they picked like two teachers from Illinois, 2 teachers from every state, and I got to stay in Japan for a month.
Oh, wow.
All expenses paid.
Wow. Cool.
And it was wonderful. Like, it was truly wonderful. When I was there, we got to have a bunch of different people come talk to us. We had theater performances, we had singers, we had, government people. But one of the highlights of my trip was I got to hear a Hiroshima survivor talk about his experiences for his family, himself, and that message that he gave of just like, hey, if you ever come back, please visit the Peace Museum. And, it was one of those things that it took me a while to get back. I had a, young son at the time. My life was different. But when I did make it back in 2017, the first thing I did was to make it out and visit the museum. And that you don't realize how much of an impact that can have, on you when you visit. My dad, he'd worked for Bridgestone and he traveled back and forth from Japan. He went to the Hiroshima Museum and he told me how he was only able to be in it for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I went there, it's like I went there and I'm like, okay, I listened to him, but man, going through it, it really hit me much the same. And I left kind of like in a daze. And I walked away from there and ended up stumbling into a place. Good Time Funari is the establishment that one of my friends work with that's there. And you said it earlier, I think, I don't know if it was on the podcast or when we're talking, but hot dogs, right? Chicago. Yeah. I'm, I just want a beer. And I saw this place had beer and hot dog. And I'm like, come on, man. I'm halfway around the world. This is like too good to pass up. But I ended up going in. He wasn't even open yet, Doc. He wasn't really open. He was there being interviewed because his place is going to open, and me being oblivious because, again, haze, just coming out of this stuff, came in, he served me, talked to me, went back and forth between this interview, and I messaged him after the fact, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, and he's like, no, I remember you, spicy dog man, and I was like, yep, I'm the spicy hot dog guy, but we every time I go back now, the group of people that we get together and he introduces me to just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we just have more and more fun each time we go. And I'm still in contact with him on like a, monthly basis. So he's just looking forward to meeting my son. So, I absolutely love it.
This is a Japanese gentleman or an American?
Yes,
really?
A Japanese gentleman that was there. And he introduced me to one of his friends on my last visit. I went there in 2019 before things shut down. And he introduced me to one of his friends who's Korean and runs at the time, a Korean restaurant. He just reopened his place a little bit closer to my friends. That's a smaller establishment, stuff like that. But it was just one of those things I don't think could have happened unless I was on vacation. You know what I mean? And then, but keeping in contact, keeping in contact and having this stuff, it's just, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
So you've got some Japanese chops, I'm guessing.
No, Doc. I'm still working through my, I have like my hiragana, katakana, or and I'm like kind of going through kanji, but I am wolf. That's one thing you're saying about moving over that I do have to improve upon.
Not really,
but we sat there with Google Translate, Doc.
Okay.
Kind of going back and forth talking about different things, and found out he was a big NASCAR fan. And he has a standing offer. He knows to come out and I'll take him to a race and stuff like that. But
cool.
just like life happens for a reason, and and I apologize for those of you that listened that came to talk to Doc, but it's just fun. It's fun kind of sharing out about each other, and I gotta say, Doc, every time I go, I fall in love with something that's different than the last time I had.
Yeah.
What is like some of the things that still excite you the most about being in Japan?
I think opportunity in general. I think when you come here as a transplant, there are many things that you bring with you, particularly as an older transplant, that are unique to your background, and they have certain ways of doing business here in Japan, certain ways of thinking, and these norms are not as cemented as people like to suggest. But what they are, I feel, is different. And if you are seen as a person who loves Japan, and not even loves is maybe the wrong word. If you're seen as a person who wants to be in Japan and believes in Japan, then your opinions are welcomed, I feel, and speaking from my own personal experience, at least. And so, if you have a different way of looking at things and want to do things that are unique and new, it's the door is kind of open. I don't really find it as closed as some people would like to suggest, and perhaps that's because of my own individual personality and openness myself to new ideas and ways of doing things. Perhaps it has something to do with my age and having a lot of experience. I think traditionally, a lot of people come to Japan just out of college. They don't have the sort of experience that I have life-wise or career-wise. And so they end up feeling trapped in this kind of, unfortunately shit world of teaching in eikaiwa, where nobody wants to listen to you and learn English, and the pay is horrible, and there's zero upward momentum, and people get bitter. It's almost better to come later, or to come and spend some time here and then return back to America and get experience, or wherever this person might be from, and then come back again. I think you have more to contribute as a human, as a professional, and then you'll see it maybe perhaps as I do as opportunity. And that's my most exciting thing to think about when I think about Japan. There's so much I can do here. I remember when I was years ago, when I was just starting out, and maybe it was I probably was here a year, I think. And I was just teaching in an eikaiwa. It's just a small classroom environment teaching kids, and I was working for a gentleman who I owe my entire stay to. He gave me a job here when I was like literally down to my last few weeks on a visa, and I'm here because of Dan Crone, and I'm very, very thankful for him to have popped into my life. But at the time, he was maybe thinking about transitioning away from teaching himself, and maybe allowing me to take over the school or whatever, and he would possibly return back to America. And I remember I was in the hospital at the time for just a routine kind of exam, and the hospital is up on a mountain. And I remember standing in front of the window and just kind of was walking around at one point in time and looking out over Kobe and thinking, like, there are so many places here that I can teach English. There are so many companies that I can get into and say, hey, I can help you. That is not as easy as it sounds, and not as easy as it appeared in my head at the time, because if you don't have Japanese, getting through to somebody to say, hey, I can help you is next to near impossible. So you can move to Japan with zero Japanese, as I did. And you can live here for decades, as many people do, with zero Japanese. But if you want to really make inroads into the Japanese business community, you got to have some Japanese. Or you have to have a partner who wants to help you make that possible. A wife or a business partner or a husband, or whatever your situation may be. But there's so much damn opportunity here. I usually equate it to the idea of immigrants in America, right? Like, immigrants to America don't come and say, oh, shit, I wish I could get a job here. they're like, fuck that. I'm going to talk to all my friends that I can find. And we're going to pool our resources together. And I'm going to make something for myself in this country. It's not unique to America. It's unique to people who want to do something for themselves. And you have to figure out a way to do it. And but for some reason in Japan, there can be a tendency to think that, oh, I'm stuck and I can't do these things. You can do these things if you put your mind to it. It's hard as a mother. But just like immigrants the world over, if you want it bad enough, you can figure it out. And I'm sure as hell not swimming up a golden fucking stream at this point in time, but you can figure out how to get some momentum going over time. By the way, can you tell I'm from New Jersey? I think I'm swearing a lot more as this goes on.
It's funny sometimes too. Like you get back, talking to someone from Chicago, using using English, like instead of the Japanese you might be from today's. And it's you're perfectly fine, Doc. I had a friend on that's another podcast friend. He's deep in Japan's the name of the podcast, and he is deep in Japan himself. But it was fun. Like, we were talking back and forth as we were, I was kind of interviewing, and it was the same thing. He's just like, man, he's like, I'm talking English and I have all this different stuff, and all these things are coming out, and I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm having fun talking with you, Doc. And I see, I see us probably getting together here again to talk. So I'm gonna move a little bit down, like our questions and things like that, because I'm having a grand time. But I do totally see, especially be it the movie that we're talking about, or other books, things like that. I'd love to for sure have you back on here. But what before we kind of move on to like your website services and some things here, there is one more thing that I wanted to ask is just, what are your hobbies, my friend, that you have outside of Maplopo? Just, making the movie, like, working on the movie. Is the movie your hobby? Is it all these different businesses that are your hobby? Like, what do you like to do, Doc, if you get to escape for a little bit?
Yeah, working is my hobby. So the movie, I should say, the movie is called From Chicago to Osaka. And it's very much in its beginning state. I optioned the script from an amazingly talented...
What? I apologize, Doc. 1 second, my friend. I said I lost you for just a moment. It was the first hiccup we had.
No
so
sweat.
if you want to just go ahead and just pretend like I asked you the question, and you can go on from there.
Yeah, so I should say, by the way, the name of the movie. So the name of the movie is From Chicago to Osaka. And it's very much in the beginning stages of things. I optioned the script, signed a deal with the screenwriter less than a month ago, Chicago screenwriter named Michael William Foster, who's brilliant. And the script is funny and so well done. It's a bilingual script. We're going to have Japanese and English in the movie. Super awesome. So, it's one of the extra things that I do. I've always wanted to produce a film. I was a story analyst for a couple of years for a distribution company in Hollywood. And I've taken a lot of screenwriting classes and comedy writing classes at The Onion with the founder, or rather at Second City with the founding editor of The Onion. So I love to write. Obviously, I'm a writer. What do I do in addition to translating is what you asked me. All of these things I do for fun. I'm probably one of those people who doesn't like to sit around too much, even though I do love to sleep. So when I do get a chance to rest, I certainly take advantage of it. But aside from translating with my wife and doing this Maplopo schoolhouse, teaching people Japanese, when I do have time, I play music or listen to music or just read. I went to school for music, I think I mentioned, and I'm a drummer by trade, even though I don't have a drum set in my house. But we do have guitars. So occasionally when we're like, hey, man, we haven't, because my wife plays too, we haven't played guitar in a while. Maybe we should bring those out and dust them off. We do that. We run every weekend, so we run for fun. My wife, this is another reason why I lost so much weight. So my wife is an insane runner. She's been running for, I don't know, 15 years or so now. And she runs like 30K every weekend, and she dragged my ass. Was it basically so 30K every weekend is like I don't get to see my wife for about 4 hours on a Sunday morning or whatever. So I started to think, well, this sucks. I mean, I love making a big buffet spread for her when she gets back, but I should probably engage my fat ass and get out there with her and move a little bit. So slowly I went out and started running with her, and now I can do 20K. And we ran last year. Was it last year? Last year or the year before, I think. We took a train to Osaka and then ran to Kyoto. So we ran from Osaka all the way up to Kyoto. It was like 55K, so a little over a marathon distance. We took the whole day to do it. But that would have been impossible before I met my wife, and impossible before I switched to mainly eating vegetables and fish. But that's a big thing that we do for fun, too. It's kind of that stuff.
I like it. I like it, Doc. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, like, how did you end up meeting your wife? Because, I mean, she kind of ties into our, your services and things like that as well.
Yeah. My wife is my life, right? My life would not be anything without her in so many regards. That's the psychological podcast. If you want to start that one, you can have that one later. We'll talk about that impact on my life. She's incredible and a partner to me in so many ways. I met her at what they call an English salon. So when I came to Japan, I took this course, this CELTA course that I was talking about, a Cambridge course that teaches you how to teach English. One of my classmates was a government official here in Kobe at a place called Hyogo International Association. And she asked me to come and teach at this salon. Basically, they invite people from the public to come and hang out and learn something interesting and have that thing that they're learning be taught in English. So mostly it's older people and maybe a couple younger people with some time off from work. And I went there with another former classmate of mine in that Celtic class. And we taught for, 2 hours or so. I met my wife. And but I actually met her for the first time maybe a month or so prior. And I was introduced to her. And she came up to me with her, or she rather handed me her business card. And she just said, Reiko desu. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I love that girl.
Yes.
I totally fell in love
awesome.
on the spot. I mean, I was just done. And then like from that moment on, I was like, okay, how do I learn more about this girl and how do I get to know her? And I'm kind of a slow and low barbecue approach kind of guy, but I ingratiate myself with people, and she thankfully reciprocated, and we got married, and now we live together, and it's great. I love being married. I never thought I would be married in my life. I never wanted to have kids. I never thought that I would ever be married. And once I met her, I wanted to do both of those things. It was really wild. It's what everybody says, I think, and you finally find the right person. I've been with people, obviously, before, and had 2 very long-term relationships, but they weren't the same. And my life has not been the same and will never be the same again, and I'm happy for it. So thanks for asking about my wife. I'm always happy to brag about her.
Well, Doc, you're giving me hope too. So I appreciate it, my friend.
Sometimes you have to be 50 before you find the right person.
But I feel like I don't know about it, Doc, but I like my own personal feeling about the thing is you have to be okay by yourself first.
Yes, you're right.
And I am, and I am fortunate. I feel to be a dad, and I have 2 wonderful relationships with my son and with my daughter. And I must have done something right because I have a soon-to-be 21-year-old that talks to his dad every day, even if it's through text, because he's worked so much. We have a concert coming up in November. We have a baseball game that we're going to go to, just him and I, in October for his birthday. And then I have my daughter, who's a freshman in high school. and still wants to sit down and, watch a show or hang out with dad or go out with them. And I wouldn't trade those two things for anything in the world. And,
that's a gift.
But I feel like it's like, but then I feel like the other person that's on the probably other side of the world, is kind of like going through some similar things. And I do feel like we are, fated to meet at some point in time. And I think everything that leads up to that, I can almost hear it in your voice too, Doc. Like, you appreciate that person then when you find them, in the case your wife, like, I'm sure you appreciate her so much more because of all of those experiences that kind of led up to that point.
Yeah, I really would do anything for her, and it is because of that. Yeah, that you recognize the stark difference between now and then, right? And
yes,
it's life changing and it's life affirming, and it's wonderful. I mean, you have this wonderful blessing of having children, as thinking of you as you just described, and that is a tremendous gift. And I was alluding earlier to this idea of, let's talk about, maybe you could get over here earlier, but you unless you brought them with you, you would be leaving behind a large part of your soul, and I would not want to encourage you to do that, obviously. I was able to do it because I didn't have those sorts of beautiful bonds that you have with your children. Keep that up. Yeah, being able to sit down with your kids is a cool thing. Especially as a dad. Right?
It is. And it's like, it's the same thing I have with my dad. We went to we've been ticking off baseball stadiums, ballparks, things like that.
Cool.
And we just did Cleveland this last, and we have booked next summer already for like a St. Louis and Kansas City type trip. So we're gonna make it through. But I just like I said, love talking about everything. But I think it's probably about time we begin to share some about like your Maplopo and that your Maplopo schoolhouses and things that you have to offer. Otherwise, I feel like another hour is going to go by and we're just going to sit here having fun together, which is nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But I do want you to promote what you're doing, because I feel like what you're offering is really unique, because there are a ton of services like to learn Japanese that are like your entry base. Your hiragana, your katakana, your just those base things, helping you learn some kanji. But what you do and offer is beyond that. And I really hope that I have some of my listeners, like I said, that are either from Australia or in Japan themselves, that might be doing their studies of Japanese, or from the United States. Right now, if you're listening and you're going through this and you're a bit, more advanced in your studies, this is for you. So pause, make sure notes are going to be at the end of the podcast. But Doc, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you offer.
Yeah, sure. No sweat. So, yes, you're right that there's a wealth of material for the early learner. The person who says, wow, like Japanese, to differentiate from the early learner. There's also the appeal to the person who says, wow, like Japanese would be a cool language to learn. And then they just get started and they download an app and maybe they fuck around with katakana for a little bit and then they never pick it up again. So there are apps for that. There's, Duolingo that can engage you and have you playing games and things of that nature, but they're limited in scope. And there is always marketplace for appealing to a buyer who buys and never does anything with the thing. That's not the approach that we've chosen to take. And it's not the market that we go after, in part because of that. So we want people to really enjoy Japanese and enjoy the story that we happen to be teaching in whatever season we're creating. So the original idea
Doc,
for this,
I apologize, my friend. I apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Doc. I apologize, my friend.
No sweat.
I know we have the video off, but we got up until you where you're talking about the story basically, and just have you if you don't mind, kind of just continue from around that point, and I will splice us all together. Thanks for your patience, my friend. I greatly appreciate
cool,
it.
No worries. Let me see if I can pick up.
So, because we had just like talked like where you'd said like basically you're focusing like there's a ton of things that are available for that entry point, and then you were saying like how you wanted to focus on like somebody who is learning like focusing on that translation based things, and you were kind of heading from there. That's when I lost you.
Okay. So so we decided to focus on a different kind of student. And the reason for that is because my wife's original idea was she thought, maybe we could take these short stories that we're translating. Initially, we thought we would teach people using the. We thought that because we translate from Japanese into English, we thought, well, maybe we could teach Japanese people who are familiar with these short stories English within the context of the translated story. And then we were eating and drinking here one night at home, and my wife said, maybe what we should do is teach Japanese instead. I mean, maybe that would be cooler. And I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. I don't speak hardly any Japanese, so how are we going to necessarily do that? So then we landed upon this idea of teaching Japanese in English, because a lot of programs love the idea of teaching a foreign language in an immersive style. And that's great if you're like a super student and you have a background and you have a great ability to focus and study and everything else. But in the normal scheme of life, I think there is an advantage to being taught a foreign language leveraging things that you already know, leveraging ideas and words and examples that you already know. So that's what we went for. But she really wanted to just have people enjoy the story. So she was thinking like, we're going to teach people Japanese, but really what we're teaching them is the story. And we want them to kind of enjoy this story by Dazai that we decided to translate. And that was the angle. And then we realized as we were producing this thing, like, this is really not for beginners at all. So who is it for? Well, it's probably for intermediate learners. And what's an intermediate learner look like? Well, it turns out they're probably somebody who, if you're a Japanese learner and you're thinking about the JLPT, most of the people in our course have already taken the JLPT3 or feel as though they could pass that level, no problem. We have many students in our course who have never taken a JLPT, who have never had a Japanese course in their lives, and who are competing, if you will, or progressing, I should say, at the same level as students who are literally translators, who have engaged in Japanese courses in college and high school. So the thing that we've realized in creating this course is, internal, you recognize, extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, right, Michael? I mean, if these people, if you're a student of Japanese and you want to learn more Japanese, you will do very well in our course. If you just want to kind of think about being a Japanese learner and not put in a lot of hard work, because this ultimately is about a 2 college semester long course, 8 months probably, then you won't fare too well and you will have wasted your money. But if you want to get a lot out of it, you will get a lot out of it. And the reason is because we've tailored it to that student. We've wrapped we've wrapped the teaching into the context, or around rather the context of the story. So you're contained in an immersive environment, which is the story, not necessarily the language. And you can build upon the knowledge of the story as you move forward. We have Anki decks that we've created, custom Anki decks for the story. We built everything from scratch. The story has 5 sections. The first section is already completed. The Anki deck has something like 800 cards in it. Section 2 is an equal number of cards. The cards have audio done by myself and my wife, so native pronunciation. It's all free, comes with the program. Not free, but it's part of the program. Airtable, where you can drill, boom, 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 listen to things. All that's downloadable for people. We have mind maps for people if you're that kind of a visual learner. We've targeted this thing. I have so when I was in, the story is not necessarily worth telling, except to say that I have a background in education too, and I have half of a master's in higher ed. And my wife is a linguist. I'm a writer. We're translators. So we're leveraging all of these decades of experience, passion for story. I was a screenwriter. All of this shit thrown in there ends up creating a different kind of course that's not available anywhere else. And it's ridiculously cheap. It's $350 for now to be a student in the course. I mean, $350, Michael, for 2 college semesters. Where could you find that anywhere?
You're not going to, and I can say, like, even if you just look at those introductory courses, Doc, that we're talking about that are available elsewhere, everywhere. I've seen some that are your $350, and it's basically getting you through, your hiragana, your katakana, and then like the basics of some of those things that are here. Yeah. So having something as focused as this, that's like you said, I was one of those things after like seeing that I was going to interview you, kind of looked around and I'm like, it's just not there. Yeah. So it's definitely something that I feel has a ton of value for it. And just upfront, everyone that's listening right now, Doc is not paying me. I'm not receiving any sort of income from this. This is all done by me to help promote different things that I find interesting in Japan. Sure. And my tagline, Doc, is that a lot of the people there's different bicycle tours. I'm hoping that I have an artist that's in Tokyo that I'm going to be interviewing coming up, and then I'm trying to work on a brewery interview as well. But it's all places that when my son and I visit next summer, I want to still see there. Yeah. And like I said, my long-term goal, Doc, is to move there. And the more friends you can have when you move somewhere, the better off you're going to be. Mm-hmm. So please, when you hear me talk about what Doc is offering, know that this comes from a very sincere place. But there is a ton of value that's in that, and I'd love for you just to continue sharing about that.
Yeah, you're not a student. No, have you asked about becoming a student? Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. It's a wonderful thing. She and I both learn a lot about our own languages. We're totally word geeks, and it's a tremendous pleasure to create it for people. We also have a Discord server where we're in there every day. If somebody needs us, we engage with the community. It's like having access to a teacher without having to pay, $50 each time to sit down with someone for an hour. I mean, we're not doing one-on-one instruction, but in the end, we're going to have well over 100 videos. We're thinking about probably 120 or 150 probably grammar spotlight videos. We have in our first section about 300 or more audio listening, practice sentences, practice tests. There's so much in there. It's kind of crazy to think that we've actually done this all by ourselves in a way, the technology and everything. And one thing we've realized lately is as we try and think about our market is because it's sometimes the offer falls on deaf ears. It feels to us. People will we have different ways of kind of seeing how people interact with our website and things of that nature. And we get, scrollers and people who don't really, we can use screen recording software and see how people interact with things. We have advertising campaigns that people click and don't really do anything. And so we're trying to fine tune things and find the audience has been and can be challenging. We think that in a way that part of our market is in an education market. And I've done research or outreach rather with department chairs at the college level and some deans and people like that. And what we find is that the colleges offer where they have Japanese as a language major or minor or Japanese literature within the same construct, people will want to learn more Japanese than the college has the opportunity to offer. So maybe they only offer 3 years or 4 years, and the students want to learn more. And so the department chairs are telling us, well, I'll mention this to my students because your things look really good and they could be really useful. So we think maybe there's an opportunity to license the program to universities, or even tie in with researchers who are exploring asynchronous learning, because that's what we do, right? You learn on your own. It's all asynchronous. I mean, when I went to community college for a semester or two 25 years ago, I was sitting in front of a teeny tiny black and white television with a VHS deck, learning ironically about computers. And that was asynchronous learning, 25, 30 years ago. It's different now, and it's much more robust, and that's what we're delivering. And what we're going to transition to do, so if anybody's listening now and considering being a student, I would encourage you to, and you have $350 burning a hole in your pocket, or you have the ability to take advantage of our monthly plan, which is $35 a month, I think. I would encourage you to sign up before the end of the year, because by the end of the year, we're going to change the price point on this, and it's going to be more competitive with what a college program might be like, or individual tutoring might be like. So we're probably looking at $1,000 price point or $1,200 price point. You can take a course like this for 12 weeks, Michael, and pay $6,000 for it, and have no interaction
100%.
with the teacher at all. And have none of these additional supplementary Anki deck sort of things. A lot of courses for intermediate learners are built around a textbook, a Genki textbook, or the intermediate textbook from the Japan Times, who makes the Genki textbook. And that's it. It's the Genki textbook. And you can learn that shit on your own.
Yes.
And so why pay $5,000, $6,000 for that? Or why pay a tutor $50 an hour to walk you through a textbook, when if you have the motivation to learn on your own, that's the student that we're targeting, then you can do this for a lot less. But it's going to go up. The price is going to go up. And just because it's the only fair thing to do, and I think we will, in a way, better reach our target market. We're okay with it being exclusive. It's exclusive now. We're okay with it being more so as we move on, particularly as we start to make better inroads into the academic world, I think. So that's kind of where we're at the Global Schoolhouse.
I like it. And sometimes it's like you never know what that is going to be that finally opens up that door to be more. And I'm looking to move over salary lanes right now, Doc. And it's the same thing. I saw even the inexpensive 12 hours was going to run me like I think it was like over $5,000, and really? That was inexpensive courses to help move me over.
This is for like educational upgrading, upskilling yourself.
Yes, really? So that when I finally end up on the other side of things, we have a set number of hours for each like salary lane, and I want to say it might be 18 hours or something like that. But it's a set number of classes that move you that lane, and then you can do it again and again. And it's, I have 4 lanes with which to move through, so that when I, what I have to offer is up to date, and I'm doing the most for my kids. But then for myself, on the opposite end of things, when I retire, I have the most available for me as well. But yeah, the prices and things like that to get that lane is definitely that more than $5,000. Wow. So hearing you even with that $1,200, if this is you and driving you, and like you said, like part of what you were doing at one point was like just the translation business and things like that. This is a lot, and I'm very excited for you and what you have to offer, both for your wife and you all. And I'm just hoping that that's it. There's a click on the links that are in that the show notes, and check it out for yourself.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I should say that if you're a translator, or if you're wanting to upgrade your Japanese for professional reasons, the people who are in our course tell us all the time that it has already helped them up their knowledge. Our course is not designed to help you pass a test. It's designed to help you enjoy the material, understand the material, and better your own understanding of it, so that you can apply it elsewhere. So one of our students is an Italian translator. She translates material in English into Italian and material in Japanese into Italian. And she she told us, I think within 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks of the program, that she had already acquired a new Japanese client because of this knowledge that she'd acquired from our program. We have another younger guy in there who translates all kinds of Japanese media, anime and manga and light novels. And he is our most fervent student and feedback loop guy. And he's always telling us how much he's learning and appreciating things. It's truly wonderful. And the other thing I will add, as someone who couldn't even pass the N5 to save his life at this point in time, one thing that's cool about this program is because we teach advanced level concepts in English, you can come into this program as a not so advanced learner of Japanese and learn a lot. So I have this cool ability to immerse myself in Japanese because I live here, right? But if I put in the time to do the Anki decks and to do all these tools that we created, I have no doubt at all that within this program, having completed this program, my ability to speak and understand Japanese would just go through the roof because of how it's taught, how we are using so much anecdotal examples in the videos, how we reinforce it through scaffolding and all of these good benchmarky kind of things that you learn as an educator. No doubt. So if you want to give it a shot, hell, give it a shot. If you don't, that's fine with us too. But it's there for the taking.
Excellent, Doc. No. And for someone that's looking to get in, is there, because I know you said there's some people that have come in with a lot less of a backing than others. What is there like a certain amount or something to where you're like, hey, if you're at this point or you have these things, it's a nice starting point? Or do you really feel that this is more just up to the motivation of, your learner that's coming into the program?
Good question. So if you couldn't do the program without at least a base in hiragana and katakana and familiarity with kanji, an ear toward the sound of the language. Some of our active students are not even native English speakers. As I mentioned, this Italian gal. We have another gal who's from Mexico, who is all self-taught. We have a lot of people who, because we're teaching Dazai, people who love this manga called Bungo Stray Dogs. And it focuses on these old writers. And so because people love that storyline, they want to read the original material. But they don't have any language skills, and they're self-taught by watching the anime and by reading the manga. And so they come to us with some experience, but not a lot, right? But you would need to know how to navigate a dictionary, a Japanese dictionary. You really, so if I think about myself, right? Like I can read hiragana, no sweat. But the moment I see kanji, I'm stopped in my tracks. But I can work my way through a dictionary and find it. And because I have that ability, I could complete the course, right? Everything else that is challenging will get easier as you go along. The Anki decks are so powerful. Do you use Anki?
I do, and I would agree with you because having that, and there's so many, like you saying, part of the hard work is just getting that set up, and like having that done for you is huge. And finding some of the ones too, just having that ability to like, hey, I know it really well, I don't, having it brought back to your attention later on, like all of that built-in repetition like does help for it to finally stick. And that is a huge tool that you have for everything.
Wanikani is, so if you're studying Japanese kanji, and I see you shaking your head, maybe you're familiar with Wanikani, listeners. That's great for learning kanji. The only thing the cool thing about the way we're teaching is it's like learning English through watching a television show. So a lot of people, when you teach English, a lot of people say, oh, well, watch movies. Movies are great, but they're not as good as television because television reinforces cast, dialogue, tone of voice, all these sorts of things. And that's what our story does. So Wanikani is fantastic, and I love it. And I've used it since before I came here. But it's kind of just a hodgepodge of vocabulary. But instead, within the story, because you're seeing our same kanji over and over again, you remember it, right? And you start to recognize the building blocks of kanji, which helps you learn. To put in a nutshell, like what kind of learner could kind of come into this program, it basically, I would say, what my wife says is you need a basic understanding of kanji and hiragana and katakana, and access to a good dictionary. As long as you have that, then you can do it.
That's awesome, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a wonderful opportunity. And even you, like you have so much going on. And one of the things I was enjoying when I was kind of doing some research about yourself is how many books you've written. Like different writing projects. I saw you as a part of Gaijin Pot. I saw that you had a lot of articles on getting jobs in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many different things that you had, going on. I mean, like you are a person that does not like to be still. So do you have any like project? I mean, the movie is going to be in and of itself something that's there, but do you have anything that you're working on currently for writing purposes?
Not that I'm focused on at the point. I have a short story that I want to complete called 49 Stars. There's a little bit of that on our website. I think the opening volley of that story is there. And I like that story. And I think it can kind of be kind of a cool story. I have this other story that I mentioned about Vietnam that I've been sitting on for a long time that I really see as a film. I see it rather than I think about reading it. But no, I have not. The latest kind of thing I've thought about writing would be documenting the trip to make this film. So I thought it could be useful for promotional purposes as well as to inform people who are interested in making movies how it's done. Or not how it's done, but how I will be going about doing it and how I step and fall on my face over and over again between now and 2023, which is hopefully when we start filming. So that's probably the most immediate thing on my mind. Aside from that, this story that we're teaching, we are loosely translating now as we teach it. And then when the course is done, we will dive into that and really translate that. So that's actually another appealing thing to our translator students is because so they see how we translate. So they're getting a version of the story now through the course. And then at the end, they'll see our finished version because it's a bitch to put together and it's a lot of back and forth and spending 4 hours on one sentence sort of thing that we don't do for the course. We get them kind of there in general. And, so that would be the most immediate thing that we're going to be finishing, let's say. Yeah.
And with all the different things that you're doing, and I just want to say before I forget again, if you need 2 extras, of people that are from Chicago to be a part of what you're doing, free of charge, if we're out there, you can take my son and I. It's like
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to mention that earlier, and we got off onto another track. So you're talking about touring baseball stadiums with your father. So one of our scenes takes place in the Hanshin ballpark. So, and so I would love to be able to squeeze you into the scene if we can. I won't say too much more about it other than to say that it's a Hanshin Tigers scene, and it would be great to have you in there. So yeah, please let's do that.
That's. It's one of those things. Like it's one of that's my favorite park. I still have a bunch to go to there. My son wants to go to Hiroshima as well to see some carp. Him and I are the type of baseball fan where you can go to any game anywhere, and we have a blast doing so. So one of the things that he wants to do when we visit is to hit as many ballparks as we possibly can. Sure. And, my daughter, on the other hand, has already begun to start planning her time out. She's going to be more art based, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun finding what we can for both. But You better believe it, my friend. I said, if you need me to help blow up balloons to let off for that stretch, I'm there for you. So
We'll definitely keep you in mind. With the art focus, your interests will play in quite nicely into the script too, because it has a big art focus, actually.
That's
Can I
awesome.
pause for a second and take a leak?
You better believe it. I'm going to do the same, my friend, and I will be right back with you.
Sweet. Thank you. Coming back.
Sounds good, my friend. Sounds good. Thank you. Good call on your part. Good call on your part.
Second cup was starting to catch up with me and getting the old shaky leg. I better go down before I pee my pants.
It's audio. It's just making more audio. That's all we're doing. What
is it? Sounds like it's raining in Colby. What's going on there?
It's like, it's storms.
Beautiful. I'm back. So you were talking about the baseball park. And while I was down, are we recording now?
Like right now, it's just, I'm going to, this whole point until we get back on again is just something that's going to, be cut out and stuff like that. So it's just, we have on. So
I was going to say then while I had a spare second, I typed in Rosati's into my computer and, that was the place I used to order pizza from all the time. That's so weird that of all the pizza places you mentioned, Lou Malnati's and Rosati's. Because they're not necessarily, I don't think, like famous pizza place, right? Unless maybe up in the burbs they are.
No, I guess it's one of those things like here, I guess, there's so many different choices, out here, number one. And then, but like those are like the two that just kind of the same thing as you, Doc. Like, I don't know, I keep on finding myself at, if I'm gonna go, and like you said, price point, man, is definitely one thing. When you're gonna drop that much, it's hard to not just, go for something else. But it is like when you're gonna do it, like I for as far as consistent quality, that is those are great.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, Rosati's has a lot of coupons. They have points and shit like that you can acquire too. So I think I was like calling up and getting 3 pizzas sometimes too. It was great. Very, very cool. And I was going into work on the weekends and stuff, so pizza guy would deliver on like Saturday, and it was a big corporate building, say like ring my phone, and I'd have to come down and open the door and get my pizza.
I gotta find a way. I interviewed somebody, Stephanie. She's works for Neold Private House, and it's so she's that's super exclusive. That's like one of those like once in a lifetime things. I'd love like to just at least see where that is, where they're at, and just everything that's a part of what it is. But I would love to try to get her a pizza at some point in time, because she was
from Chicago too.
No, she's not. But she was just one of those things where, you start talking food, and I'm like, man, if you ever, like same thing, standing offer for, anyone that's there. It's just like, hey, if you come out this way, I'm like, pizza is one of those things, like pizza and hot dogs. You got to experience at least,
sure.
While you're here before you head back.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. I know the guy, there's the French guy who's kind of runs that place as manager. Maybe do you know him too? Neil?
No, I do not. No, I know. I was going to. So I know a gentleman from Jeff from Rediscover Tours, Japan, and he was the one that introduced me to him, and then he helped set up an interview for me, so I could kind of like talk about like what he had to offer and things like that, and so I don't know him directly or personally, but just because of contacts. And I gotta say, Doc, like it's one of those things, like you say, like you make a contact or you have something that happens, and I'm a firm believer of, I may not be a practicing Catholic either, at this point in time in my life, but I do believe that things happen for a reason, and you come across people at different times, and it's funny how one thing, like for your course offerings, stuff like that, you could have one thing that happens, and then suddenly you have all these other connections and contacts and people that are, come into your life as a result of that. And
you never know what's going to happen. That's for sure.
It's wonderful. And like I said, I've got the one gentleman, Ken, like Tanaka, he's the one that's out of Tokyo. That's the artist that he's going to let me record some video so I can share with my students. Like, how cool is that to offer, like, hey, here's somebody who's actually making art, and he's going to be sending something that I purchased from him, because, from a piece, it's going to be sent to my students so they can see. So you can have kind of like that type of connection. But then really like the friends that I'm making, I have a gentleman that I came in contact. He's still in Canada. But like he has a bunch of things that are, happening as far as that. But like, it's like you just can't have enough people in life that can be a positive addition to it, because the more positive people you surround yourself with, that really does pay off dividends in your life.
Most certainly. I agree entirely. So you're an artist yourself, I'm guessing, if you're teaching art. Yeah. What's your medium?
Yeah. I was photography for the longest time, and I say it's one of those things like easy to let go. It's kind of like that. My camera is in my closet, and much like your guitar, it's one of those same things where it's like, man, I need to dust off and go with. And that was one of the things I loved most about like travel and visiting back in Japan, was that like time. You're just where you're like, hey, this is it, and I can do it. So
yeah, right. You have the time to shoot. Exactly. Yeah.
But but music, I love that too. It's like,
That's cool. I asked because this film is so the main character in the film is a web designer, but he's also an artist. So he travels to Chicago. Oh, you read The Treatment, maybe. He travels to Osaka to display his art, right? So right up your alley.
I know it's exciting. Like, I don't know, like the world that we're in now, is so much better. Cause I mean, like I remember telling my dad is super supportive. Big part of my life. I've almost lost him a bunch of times just from health issues. So I count like, we talk daily and I count each trip with him as like a blessing, but like back in high school, when I said that I wanted to go into teaching and have art be a part of my world, it's like, he's like, no, Mike, don't do that. Like you want to be able to support yourself, and you have those things that are there. But like, I feel that people today have, even more opportunity, especially when it comes to art, to have that be the career that they're going with things. I'm jealous in that regard. Like if you were kind of starting off in your life right now. I wouldn't want to do it again, Doc. I tell you right now, but there's so many opportunities, and I think art is looked a little more favorably upon as like a career than like what I felt it was at that time. At least for my opinion, from where I was coming from.
It's not a quick path to wealth, that's for sure, but it's more acceptable, and it's more it's more versatile, and more versatile in the sense that there's more application for it because we're living online and everybody needs a logo and everybody needs this and that. So there are applications for it. There's also been the reduction in because things are more democratized and cheaper. It's hurt artists as well. But certainly a lot more going on for artists than previously. I would agree with that.
No, it's great. And let's see here, because I know we had our. Is there anything more that you want to add on? Because I know we're kind of going into your writing and things. I was going to ask you a little bit about if you had any things to kind of share as far as like someone looking to get a job in Japan is just kind of like that common question that I hit upon. But do you want to hit more upon like either your translation services that you're have to offer? Or is there anything else that you want to hit on before we hop back in and kind of get heading in that direction?
No.
Okay.
Let's make it for the listener.
Cool.
I mean, they can always fucking look at my stuff if they want to see it. That's fine.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sounds good. Well, Doc, thank you for that break call on your end. It was a perfect timing on my end.
Yeah.
That's been a long day. And I, don't want to take up, too much, of your day. I know that you said you have open and things that you have, open for our time that's here. And I greatly appreciate that. But one thing that I like to ask of people that are in Japan, and especially with you making that transition like you did from States to Japan itself, what are like some advice that you could give someone that's looking to possibly move to Japan, get some employment in Japan? I mean, we talked about reducing the things that you have, that can hold you back, but what else would you kind of give as a recommendation?
As far as thinking about moving here for a career, is that right?
Yes.
As you frame that question, are you thinking about someone of a particular age or no?
Wherever you want to go with it, my friend. This is the teacher in me that there's no wrong answers. Yeah. Wherever you want to go, I'm going to give you a gold star at the end of it, Doc.
All right. So one of the things that's cool about Japan, and one of the things that made coming here possible for me, is that you can come to Japan if you have a college degree to teach English quite easily. And so I had for the large portion of my adult life wanted to live and work overseas. And the number one obstacle is a visa. All right. So if you want to work in Europe, you have the whole issue of dealing with the EU, and they have a requirement, or at least have had, I'm guessing it's the same, to where they have to, offer jobs first to EU citizens, or at least do their best, or EU residents, do their best to make that happen. The same rule applies in America, right? Like, so if you come to America and you want to work on H-1B or some sort of work visa, they have to advertise it and they have to show, well, no real person is suited for this job in the immediate vicinity of this company to take it. So we're going to hire this H-1B person. But in Japan, when I was here for the McCartney concert, I met this kid who was traveling and had friends who lived here and worked as teachers. And I said, "Oh, really? How did they do that?" And he said, "Oh, well, all you need is a college degree." I was like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me! Like, I have 2 college degrees. They haven't done me much good except made me a little smarter, maybe. But maybe I can put them to use." So I was like, "Wow, okay," and that opened my whole opportunity window for coming to Japan. So if you're thinking about, I have to shift here. Hang on. If you're thinking about coming to Japan and you don't have, let's say, a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of age behind you, and you have 0 language skills, you can come here with a college degree and you can teach English. And how do you find those jobs? Before you come, you should reach out to do some research online. There are lots of people who talk about companies that are set up to teach English. There are big companies like Berlitz and lots of smaller companies. You can go to gaijinpot.com. You mentioned Gaijinpot. I write a jobs column for them every month and search for jobs. We're starting to see actually a lot more remote work opportunities where you don't need to be a resident of Japan. And now that things are opening up a little bit, you're going to start to see more recruiting of younger people again to come and teach English here in Japan. So these big companies recruit from America. They'll pay for you often to come to Japan and work at one of their schools under a contract for a year. And usually people come over here as what's called an alt, assistant language teacher. So you'll kind of pair up with a Japanese teacher who's teaching English, and you'll be there as a kind of a helper, if you will. It's a fairly easy job to get, from what I understand. It's not the most rewarding career in the world. It's not really a career. And I think in my experience, when I've found people who have not necessarily willingly made it their career, they have not led a full life here in Japan. So if you come to Japan and you teach for a while, have another opportunity in the wings. Lately, we've started to see a good deal of people starting to transition into coding. If you're a language person, if you like the idea of teaching English, you probably have the chops to learn how to code. It's a language, and it's just about learning structure and form, and the money is a lot better. And you don't have to deal with kids who are screaming and crying and infecting you with coronavirus 3 and 4 times in a row. And if you can, you can learn just like our class, asynchronous learning, right? You can learn coding on your own for free online. Learn that stuff now before you come. I was learning Japanese and I was learning how to teach before I came as a way to kind of land properly. But I also come with decades of marketing and sales experience. And so when I was initially hired to work at this Eikaiwa, the guy I mentioned earlier appreciated that I was bringing that to the table because he was thinking about maybe getting rid of the school, right? So I wasn't just a fresh-faced kid out of college. I was a fresh-faced transplant to Japan, but I came with a lot of different experience. The higher you are up in age, the more beneficial I would think that having Japanese under your belt is, but it's not necessary. So the other career that you could consider here in Japan is a recruiter. So recruiters are highly paid and they're highly busy, and they, for the most part, do not need a bevy of Japanese, and sometimes they don't need any at all. So you can break into that career with some sort of professional training that's even as low as a year or 2 of work. I see many jobs on Gaijinpot and elsewhere for assistants and research assistants in recruiting firms. It's a great way to make, you can come to Japan and you can make 10 million yen as a recruiter, which is like 100,000 US dollars. You got to work your ass off to do that, but you can do that without Japanese. or at least without a lot. Now, if you're considering such a move, dear listener, and you're online and you're reading about this recruiter and that recruiter says that you need to have Japanese and you need to have passed the JLPT2 and the JLPT1, that's not true. Maybe for that person and for that firm, you need to have that. But there are many opportunities where you don't need that at all, especially if you come in and are willing to come in as a research assistant, something like that. Some of us write, like I write. Some of us translate. So you mentioned the Japanese or the Hiroshima Peace Museum. I actually write for them. I do editing, I should say, for the newspaper that publishes their articles. So people write and edit here in Japan. The money is not great. The smarter thing to do is to establish a base here in Japan. For most people, this is what I would do. This is what I do. and this is what I would do is, if you have hustle in you and you're not afraid to pick up the phone and create your own business, and you want to live in Japan, come to Japan and find a teaching job that allows you to set up a life here, and then leverage your talent and your hustle to get work that you are good at in America or in whatever country you're originally from. So, these days, thanks to the pandemic, if we can thank it for anything, so many more people are open to doing what we're doing, right? Having a conversation without being in place with one another. They're so much more open to remote work. If you can write, if you can sell, if you have the ability to do research, marketing, any sort of thing like that, graphic design, all of that can be done remotely. And if you can pick up the phone, email people, companies in your home country and say, hey, I can do this work for you. And I could probably do it a little less or with a little less cost because the cost of living in Japan is cheaper. And I can turn things around faster for you because we're a day ahead of you. You can make a life for yourself. So you can collect money in US dollars, spend them in Japan. That's how you do it.
That's a huge gain, especially with the value right now of the yen and the dollar.
Yeah, my domain hosting is like, I'm looking at my statement like, what the hell is this weird dollar amount? That's not what I usually pay. Oh shit, the yen is taking a something I won't say, and
yeah. I've been buying it,
Really?
like on my side of things, like just taking money out and just go ahead and getting
Smart.
it because I feel at some point in time it's going to kind of correct itself, and I'd rather have my yen bucks to go and travel with now, and hopefully come out a little bit more ahead.
Yeah.
But
it used to be 1-to-1. I used to think of it as 1-to-1, and then I realized, oh shit,
Yes.
This is really like 1-to-1/2 is what I need to think about as of late. Not doing so well.
No. And I appreciate it, and I know those listeners do too, just any suggestions and things that they have, especially when it's coming from someone that has taken the jump that you have.
Thanks.
And not just be, in the words of McCartney, a band on the run. Do you have any favorite books that you've read, podcasts that you might listen to? I don't know how much you do as far as like YouTube goes or things like that, but do you have anything that you enjoy kind of listening to or taking in, either on Japanese, or just really any other topics that you might want to share with listeners?
These days, not so much. I used to listen to a ton of podcasts. If you're thinking like, so the number one podcast I always recommend, just because it's enjoyable and you learn a lot about life and opportunity and covering from a loss of opportunity, is Mark Maron's podcast, WTF, What the Fuck, Mark Maron.
Yeah.
Mark Maron kind of laid a lot of groundwork for podcasts, and he used to do it. I think he still does it in his garage. He's had Obama on his podcast. He's amazing. So I used to listen to that religiously, and it's a wonderful podcast. But beyond that, like business-wise, I used to listen to a lot of these side hustle podcasts. They are jam-packed with ideas like you would not believe. So if you're a little bit like me and you're kind of, easily distracted by shiny objects, you can think like, wow, I can do that, and I can do that, and that just sounds like a good business. And this can be a little bit dangerous. You have to like stop listening after a while. But if you're more focused than I am, or you don't have any ideas necessarily, they are tremendous. So I could maybe think of a few I could send you links for, but Side Hustle Nation, I think, is one. There's another one, Chris Gullibo, he has his French sounding name. Here's another one. Those are two great podcasts about side hustles. I love listening to a screenwriting podcast called Script Notes. That's cool if you're into screenwriting. YouTube I don't use. I don't have the time to sit down necessarily and then listen to YouTube. It's just not one of my things. I have used Japanese Pod 101 on YouTube. It's tremendously helpful for beginning learners if you want to learn about early Japanese and structure. It's very well organized. Yeah, that's about it. Books. My wife doesn't like that I don't read enough fiction books. I can kind of digest a nonfiction book, no problem. And I'm always reading 2-3 books at a time. These days, I'm reading a lot of books on producing and how to be a producer, if you will, how that end of the world works. I know a different side of it. So I'm reading that sort of stuff. I mentioned recruiting. There's a gentleman who has written, I think now, 2 books on how to become a recruiter in Japan. I would recommend them. They're good and they're affordable. Again, maybe I can get you some links. There's another guy who wrote a book about doing business in Japan. He's with the Dale Carnegie Institute. That's another excellent book, especially if you're older and thinking about like business sort of stuff.
I
Go
like
ahead,
it.
buddy.
No, I said I like that, and I, just having like a bunch of interest of things here, and I see a common theme with you, Doc, where it's like your prep work before you get into something, paying off, and that's I think that's some advice for anybody, and nice that you didn't let that kind of trip you up though, from getting started or taking that leap to go to Japan in the first place.
That's so important. Ever since I was a kid, I have always been eager to volunteer to learn. So too many people, I think, oh, I have to get paid to do this. And that's just the wrong attitude. And maybe it's because I've always been interested in media and entertainment. And by nature, those sorts of gigs don't really pay entry-level people. So if you want those gigs, you got to hustle your ass off and you got to say, hey, I'll do that for free. And so I mentioned this story analyst job that I had. I worked for a distribution company, and I was so it was a year before I came here, and then 2 years while I was here, I think, or maybe the other way around. But I was an intern. So I was 45 or 46 years old, and I saw a job posting for an intern for this distribution company reading scripts, and I had read scripts talking about groundwork. I wanted to work in film. I'd taken classes in screenwriting, and I said, okay, what's the next step? How do I get to know people in the film industry who might read my script or who might hire me to write scripts or something like that? So I leveraged the screenwriting class experience to volunteer for film festivals as a script reader. So I said, oh, okay, I'll read scripts for you for free. And I would do it at night and on breaks and stuff during film festival season. And then I was able to leverage that experience into this internship opportunity as a 45, 46-year-old. And for 3 years, for zero pay, write script analysis on Hollywood screenplays, and so my notes would go to my boss, and they would evaluate them and get together in a meeting and partially decide as to whether it would be a film that they might want to invest in, right? I'm just some muckety-muck in Chicago, like barely staying awake and trying to read and write about the script, but I learned how to do it. And then now I can reach out to that person who was my boss, who was younger than me, and say, hey, I got lucky and I've optioned this script, and can you tell me what I need to know about maybe dealing with pre-sales and things like that, because that was his world. So I did not know where I would be now 6-7 years ago when I started taking classes in screenwriting 8 years ago, whatever it was. But I volunteered my ass off. And if you are willing to volunteer, you will learn so much. And cannot recommend it enough. Yeah, read what you can, study what you can, talk to people. You're doing this, by the way. Obviously, you know that, but you're doing this as well. So when you finally come here 25 years from now and you're coming with a walker, you'll be able to help people. Like, I'll be able to say, hey, Michael, I know people who run a nursing home and they can put you in this place.
No doubt about it, Doc. No doubt. You're going to have the nicest things, possible picked out for me at that point.
I literally know people who run a nursing home here. And I know people who run nursing care facilities. And you said you worked in the daycare, so you're right there as well, buddy. You're good to go.
But you better believe it. The whole cycle. I can still change a diaper, Doc. I can still change a diaper.
Your own diaper, though. That's the thing. Is it real question?
That's a skill. That's a skill.
It must be. Yeah, cool.
But no. I like it, Doc, and I want to, like I said, thank you again for coming on. And is there anything else that you'd like to share that we've not covered to this point?
Yeah. So let me talk just briefly about this idea of you mentioned this 6% ding on your salary. And because it plays into my transition here. So first, let me ask you. So you mentioned 6% ding on your annual pension. Does that mean like as you would be receiving a pension in the future, you're going to get 6% less, or for the next 10 or 13 years of needing to work, you're going to get less? Tell me how that works.
Sure. For us, and like for at least where I'm at in Illinois, basically, if you don't put in your 35 years, and it's more now, unfortunately, for other teachers, I think you have to work to your 67, Doc, to get like the retirement that I can get potentially when I'm like 57, 56, 58.
Wow. Okay.
But every year that you go early of that 35, you are basically the last 3 years of your teaching. They take that percent of it that you get, and then whatever year that you're off early of that. So like if you went in 30 years as opposed to 35, every year that's there, you lose 6% of that total income that you're going to get paid. So like if you're, that's 6% 1 year less. If it's 2 years, it's another 6%. If it's 3 years, it's another 6%. And so that's where those things begin to, like tack on to what you have. And because I was like you at one point where I, within this last year, had really got to a point where I was like, you know what? Is this something I can just go do? You know what I mean? Like just really look to go. But what is, you talk about not letting things hold you back, but the thing that's kind of holding me back at this point in time is I want to be there for my kids through college, number one. If they didn't just come with me and go over, but losing that like built-in retirement that I've been paid into is another thing that kind of works against that. So I know I'd have to supplement it somehow, or find something on the other side to get through. But I'd be interested for anything that you have to offer, at least in that regard.
I have no money to offer you, sadly, but.
I didn't win the lotto, Doc. There was like a $700 million lotto that was like a few weeks ago here. And we would have been having a different interview, Doc, because I would have been in person, talking to you at this point in time, as opposed to, by our Riverside chat right now.
And I would have been asking you if you wanted to invest in my movie.
And I would have, my friend. There's no doubt about that. Come on, you have, like you said, working baseball into it. I'm already sold. It's just like it doesn't. I don't even need to hear the rest of it.
If there are any investors out there, please reach out in that regard. I'm happy to talk to you about that. So that's a real hell of a smack for sure. So this is what I was going to mention. So when I when I was thinking about how to live here in Japan without a tremendous amount of, I've never been fortunate enough to have jobs that paid me a lot of money. And I've somewhat hopped around between interests because that's how I am. I kind of I tend to be like, I kind of know I'm a learner. So once I've kind of tapped out on learning, I'm like, I really don't want to do this anymore because I know how to do it. And if I can't navigate upward in a company to train people and manage people, which I'm very good at, then I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this, and I move on. And so that's hurt me because I've not had the stability that other family members have had or other people my age have had, for sure. Not had that stability. And so when I ended up working at Revenue Well and making a very decent income for these folks, the one thing they also did for us was they allowed us to contribute to a 401k plan right from day one. And I had worked at the University of Minnesota some years earlier, and they made us wait like 3 years or some shit like that. So I never even got a chance to participate. It's like a total like fuck me kind of thing. Like, oh, hey, come work for us and check out our cool business or our good benefits packages. But by the way, you can't take advantage of them ever because you have to fucking live here forever and stay here for. So ridiculous. So, but Revenue Well took care of us, and they set us up on this package plan, and so I was able to sock away like 10 grand, I think, $10,000, I think, in 401k because I worked there for 5 years, and I was paid well for the work that I did. I was one of like the first 10 people there. Now they have like over 100 people working there. It's a big company now. But anyway, so I was thinking, like, okay, I want to go to Japan, but I really don't have any money. How am I going to do this? I'm going to need a cushion. So I thought, well, maybe I could take out the 401k. I could take money out of the 401k and use that. But of course, everything you will ever read about withdrawing from your 401k.
Don't do that.
Yeah, they tell you that's the dumbest thing you could do ever, right? Don't do that because you're going to pay a penalty. You're going to pay a 10% penalty or whatever it is. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. If I told my father, he would be like, my father worked in insurance his whole life. He would be like, are you an idiot? Don't do that. But that's exactly what I did. And the reason I did that is because I rationalized, 100% accurate or not, I rationalized that the money that I had put away into the 401k was, for one, my money. And I was given a tax break fairly equal to, or not exactly equal to, or almost exactly equal to the amount I would be penalized. So I thought, well, shit, maybe I got a 10% break on my annual taxes to put money in, and I was going to get a 10% break or 10% penalty for taking it out. I figured, I'm not an accountant, but essentially a wash, and it was my money.
Yes.
So why not take it out? And it was the only way that was the obstacle to moving here. Like, I have no savings, right? And once I figured that out, then I was like, oh, wow, okay. And I was able to live here and try and find work, which I thought, by the way, was going to be the easiest thing to do. You may have thinking, having listened to me talk about how easy it is to get a teaching job here in Japan, not true as an older person. So it took me 6 months to get a job here. And I came here with a $2,500 qualification in teaching from the highest place you can get it to teach English, and a background and all sorts of other things. It didn't matter. So there is a little bit of age discrimination there when it comes to teaching, which you will no doubt encounter if that's what you want to do here, especially if you don't have Japanese. So I needed money. And so taking the hit, being okay with taking the penalty hit, was made it possible. And so initially when you were talking about having to take a hit, I thought, oh, maybe it could apply to you, especially because living here in Japan is a lot cheaper.
Yes.
It kind of balances it out. I remember years ago, I was watching this thing on television where an accountant was trying to help this couple figure out whether their soon-to-be mother in this couple should stay home or keep working. And the accountant ran all the numbers about like car and all that stuff and the expenses of still working, daycare. And he said you'd actually keep more money if you didn't work. So smart number people can help you make smart decisions. I don't think, based on what you just told me, that that it would be smart to leave earlier. Not as early as you could now, but you could talk with an accountant in 10 years and say, like, what would I be looking at, now, or 7 years or whatever. You might find that it's more worthwhile to leap earlier than to wait an additional 5 years or something like that.
Oh, no doubt about it. And this year, my school district had offered to buy out basically 2 years. So the 6% penalties that you'd get, they're trying to get people out so they can have less money that they're paying, to you, like to other people, to people that are on the opposite end of that pay scale. So if something like that comes out and I can use my sick years or my sick days to purchase something as well, you better believe it. But yeah, I said that's going to be something about the time when my daughter is, on that end of her life and looking to start some things herself. You better believe it, Doc. I will be being there. It's that's going to be good.
I'll be here. So. You say hello.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I do. I wish you nothing but the best. I really appreciate everything that's here, and I'd love to have you back on as you get into filming, talk more about what you're doing. Would love to do that again, Doc.
More than happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, just one more time, what are your sites and things? It's your time to once again just kind of plug you and all that you're looking to do right now.
Yeah, sure. So main site, literature to literature translation and all sorts of other original stories and things like that is at maplopo.com, maplopo.com. And if you want to check out Maplopo Schoolhouse, which is our learning program for Japanese learners, you can go either to maplopo.com/schoolhouse or maploposchoolhouse.com, redirect to the same place. For now, the film thing has a domain name, but there's not a lot. There's nothing going on there yet. But Michael and I are working on putting together a website that'll be at from Chicago to Osaka.com. And the hell else? Gaijin Pot. Just type in Doc Kane, Gaijin Pot. You'll find me there. What am I missing, Michael? Maplopo Schoolhouse.
You have that. You have your DocKane.com as well. And you had some stuff that's like you said in Lindekin. I'm gonna put in LinkedIn. Sorry, not LinkedIn. It's
sounds like
it's my own company.
Sounds like a branch of IKEA or something like that.
That's right. But the furniture, doesn't fall apart. Here we go. It's I'll put all of those descriptions in the show notes that's here. And if you have anything else you want to add, feel free. But definitely look forward to it, my friend. And I do want to thank you again for joining us today.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Keep doing good stuff. Keep eating good pizza, but not too much. Shout out to Rosati's. That was Rosati's, by the way. I think I came back during the break and I told you, but for those listening who are maybe puzzled, is it really Rosati's? Yes, it was Rosati's. They're amazing. They're kind of like Quattro's Pizza in Carbondale, Illinois, which is the best pizza on the planet. Quattro's. I still know their number. Can I give the phone number for Quattro's?
You better believe it. Let's go for it.
Dial 5495326. Quattro's Deep Pan Pizza. Yay! Area code 618 if you're in Carbondale. I still know that. That's 30 years
awesome.
Later.
Love it, Doc. I love it. It's been so much fun. And if I can, we'll look to maybe add a song of the show too. Okay. On for what we have. But on behalf of Lost Without Japan and our entire crew, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today for this interview. And we look forward to seeing you on board again for our next regularly scheduled episode as we continue our discussion on Japan, travel, culture, and your next Lost Without moment. To everyone out there, Ogenki Day. Stay well, my friends.
When you're in the mood for real good food, here's the number to call where you can get it all. 5495326. That's quattros.